welcome to Griffonomics.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So imagine packing an entire fully functional military aerospace factory into like a single shipping container.
Right.
And then dropping it into an active war zone and 3D printing a drone that can navigate its way to a target without a single GPS signal.
It sounds totally made up.
It really does. It sounds like a pitch for a sci-fi movie, but that is actually happening right now in Eastern Europe.
Yeah, and it represents a completely fundamental dismantling of how we traditionally think about defense manufacturing. I mean, the whole architecture of the Cold War.
With giant factories.
Exactly. Million-square-foot concrete facilities that take decades to build and, years just to churn out a single fighter jet. That whole model is becoming obsolete. The modern battlefield is demanding speed, adaptability, and just an incredibly high volume of hardware.
Which brings us to the mission of our deep dive today. We are custom tailoring this exploration for you, looking at a company claiming to be right at the absolute center of this shift.
AEVEX Aerospace.
Right, AEVX Aerospace. Trading on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker AVEX, we have a massive stack of sources today.
We really do.
We've got their latest defense contracts, financial forensics, supply chain audits, and their recent April 2026 IPO documents. We need to look past the flashy headlines to answer one core question today.
Which is whether AEVX is a generational autonomous defense juggernaut or if it's just a highly concentrated capital sink.
Exactly. So to set the stakes for you, global defense budgets are undergoing this historic pivot.
Yeah, toward what the military calls low-cost, attritable autonomous warfare.
Attritable meaning, basically, expendable.
Right. Attritable means platforms that are cheap enough that battlefield commanders are actually willing to lose them in combat. They aren't precious assets.
Yeah.
To put that into perspective, the U.S. alone is requesting over $50 billion for uncrewed platforms in fiscal year 2027.
$50 billion.
Just for uncrewed platforms. It's the central pillar of modern defense strategy.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand AEVX's financials, we first have to understand what they actually are.
Right.
And who they're fighting against for market share. Because if you look at the defense sector right now, it is deeply bifurcated. AEVX is essentially positioned as this tier 2 super integrator.
The Goldilocks of the defense sector.
Yeah, exactly. They sit right in the middle of two extremes. On one side, you have the massive legacy aerospace conglomerates.
The Lockheeds, the Boeings.
Right. They have huge balance sheets, but they are weighed down by decades of bureaucracy and these legacy cost-plus pricing models.
And we should clarify what that cost-plus model actually does to a company's DNA.
Oh, please do.
Well, under a cost-plus contract, the government basically reimburses a defense prime for all their expenses and then just adds a guaranteed percentage of profit on top.
Which sounds like a terrible incentive structure.
It is. It historically bred massive inefficiency. I mean, there's no financial incentive to build things cheaper or faster because the longer it took and the more it cost, the larger the absolute dollar profit became.
Wow. Okay, so that's one extreme. And then on the total opposite side of the spectrum, you have the venture-backed Silicon Valley startups.
Right.
They write brilliant artificial intelligence software, but they completely lack industrialized hardware production.
Yeah, they can build 10 incredible prototypes in a lab, but they can't build 10,000 reliable units on an assembly line.
And AEVX is attempting to bridge that exact gap.
That middle ground is where the enterprise value is just exploding right now.
Yeah.
If we evaluate their total addressable market, or TAM, the trajectory is staggering.
Let's hear the numbers.
By 2030, AEVX's core offensive systems market, which is, uncrewed aerial systems and surface vehicles, combined with adjacent markets like counter-U.S. electronic warfare, it creates a projected $31 billion TAM in the U.S. alone.
$31 billion.
Yeah, and globally that expands to a $49 billion market by 2030.
Okay, but sure, $49 billion sounds amazing on a pitch deck, but how does a mid-tier company actually capture that against the giants?
That's the real question.
I mean, the legacy primes have multi-decade lobbying networks in Washington. Startups have endless Silicon Valley venture capital. How does AEV actually win the contract?
They win it by demonstrating an industrial combat flywheel.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It means they are actually shipping hardware at a volumetric scale that the startups can't touch. and at a speed the legacy primes simply won't match.
Right.
We're tracking a production ramp heading toward over 1,000 systems per month.
1,000 drones a month.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By the end of fiscal year 2026, they projected to deliver over 9,000 combat-proven units to the Ukraine theater,
That's massive.
including the Phoenix Ghost family of loitering munitions.
Yeah.
And that volume fundamentally changes their economics because it drives down the marginal cost of every new unit.
I saw something in the notes about a program called ForgeX being deployed to help hit those numbers. What exactly is that?
Oh, what's fascinating here is how ForgeX physically alters the defense supply chain. These are tactical, modular 3D printing drone factories.
So the shipping containers I mentioned earlier.
Yes, exactly. They literally pack an additive manufacturing facility into shipping containers and deploy it directly to the theater of operations.
So they are pushing the assembly line right to the front lines.
Exactly. They are completely bypassing traditional, sluggish, transoceanic supply chains. Think about it. If a commander in the field needs a specific wing modification for a new mission, or parts need to be repaired, they don't send a requisition order back to a facility in California and wait 3 months.
They just print it.
They print the components and assemble them right there. This edge manufacturing dramatically reduces marginal unit production costs.
It creates a level of operational agility that traditional defense primes just aren't structured to execute.
Precisely.
Okay, but printing 1,000 drones a month is kind of pointless if they just get knocked out of the sky by a $50 Russian signal jammer.
True.
How are they protecting this hardware? Which brings us to the software verticalization. AEVEX has this proprietary ecosystem called CompassX.
Right. CompassX is their navigation and autonomy platform. It serves as the brain and, more importantly, the shield for these uncrewed platforms.
So what does this all actually mean? Because commercial drones are cheap, you can buy them off the shelf. Why can't an adversary just point an electronic warfare jammer at an AEVX drone and shut it down?
Because AEVX embeds what is essentially jamming-immune software armor into their systems. You have to understand that the modern combat environment is a crucible of intense adversarial electronic warfare.
It's just flooded with interference.
Exactly. It is a completely GPS-denied environment. Communications are heavily jammed. If you fly an off-the-shelf commercial drone into that airspace, it loses its connection to the satellite, it loses its connection to the operator, and it literally just falls out of the sky.
So it's flying completely blind.
But CompassX enables precise, visual-based navigation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, instead of asking a satellite where it is, the drone uses its onboard optical sensors and artificial intelligence to physically look at the ground.
Like a pilot would.
Exactly. It processes the terrain, rivers, roads, buildings, and compares that visual data in real time against onboard topographical maps.
That's wild.
It's akin to driving a car when your phone's GPS dies, right? You look out the window, recognize a landmark, remember the map you studied, and navigate yourself. The drone does that autonomously at high speeds, allowing it to execute strikes inside highly contested airspace.
But wait, I mean, anyone can write visual navigation software in a lab. What stops a well-funded tech startup from just writing better code and stealing their market share?
Because the barrier to entry isn't the code, it's the data.
Ah, okay.
This is where their volumetric hardware scaling directly builds their software moat.
Because they have so many units out there.
Exactly. Because AEVX has deployed thousands of systems into live, intense combat, they are continuously harvesting thousands of hours of real-world battlefield telemetry.
The live data.
Every single time a drone flies through advanced jamming tactics, that data feeds back into AEVX's engineering loop.
I see.
They update the AI, harden the software against that specific jamming frequency, and deploy the update. That live telemetry sourcing outpaces any theoretical simulation a competitor is running in a sterile laboratory.
But maintaining that software moat isn't cheap?
No, not at all.
Looking at their overhead metrics, we have a massive talent ingestion drag.
Yeah.
Because to keep that AI sharp, AEVEX is aggressively onboarding elite, highly expensive aerospace engineering and data science talent.
Right. You are competing with the biggest tech firms in the world for the engineers who know how to build autonomous neural networks.
Exactly. And that kind of payroll exerts immense near-term pressure on operating margins.
And that operational pressure is compounding with geopolitical fractures.
Let's talk about that, the China situation.
Yeah, we have to look at the raw material pipeline. Recently, China placed AEVX on its unreliable entity list.
Which means what, practically?
It enforces strict import and export prohibitions against the company.
Right. And in defense manufacturing, Supply chain sanctions are a massive threat. I mean, you can have the best AI in the world, but if you can't source the rare earth minerals, the advanced battery cells, or the specific electronic microcomponents required to build the physical drone, your assembly line stops dead.
Exactly. The structural impact of that unreliable entity drag threatens their upfront capital cycles.
Because they have to find new vendors.
Right. If they have to suddenly pivot to alternative friendly nation suppliers for microelectronics, those components are often significantly more expensive.
And they carry longer lead times.
Exactly. It squeezes their operating cash flows right when they're trying to scale velocity.
So operationally, they look like a tower house, but they are juggling massive overhead and supply chain threats. And when a defense contractor tells me they have an $8.4 billion contract backlog, my instinct is to look at the fine print.
Always look at the fine print.
How much of that money actually exists right now?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to deconstruct the architecture of that backlog. It is heavily reliant on indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts.
The IDIQ ceilings?
Commonly known as IDIQ ceilings, yes.
So an IDIQ is basically, it's like the government handing you a gift card with no actual money loaded onto it yet. It's a ceiling, not a guarantee.
That is exactly the reality of the IDIQ illusion.
Okay.
The government establishes a vehicle saying, hey, we might buy up to $8.4 billion worth of systems over a decade.
Might buy.
Right. But they haven't actually appropriated the cash for those specific orders. To reconcile the optical visibility of that headline number against reality, as of March 2026, only $356.6 million was formally funded.
Wow. Only $356.6 million out of $8.4 billion. That is a massive gap.
It is.
And it introduces significant option churn risks, right? AEVEX has these multi-year programs with unexercised incremental options.
Right.
If geopolitical spending priorities shift, say the strategic focus pivots from Europe to the Pacific, and those multi-year options are left unappropriated, that multi-billion-dollar pipeline could just vanish.
Which exposes their most glaring structural hazard, honestly.
The customer concentration.
Yes. If we quantify their financial vulnerability from the Q1 2026 reporting, over 88% of their recognized revenue is tied directly to a single customer.
The U.S. government.
The U.S. government.
Yeah.
And primarily it flows through the Air Force and an ingestion channel called Big Safari.
Right, and for some context for you listening, Big Safari is a historically secretive Air Force program designed entirely around rapid acquisition.
Yeah.
Their whole purpose is to cut through the standard, agonizingly slow procurement red tape to get specialized airborne intelligence and strike assets into the field immediately.
Which explains why AEVX can move so fast.
Exactly. But having nearly 90% of your revenue tied to the U.S. government means you are entirely at the mercy of sovereign budget dependencies.
Yeah, as we assess the near-term operational impacts, you just have to factor in congressional budget disputes.
The dreaded continuing resolutions.
Exactly, CRs. If the government operates under continuing resolutions, which freeze spending at previous year's levels, and legally prevent new programs from starting AEVX's primary ingestion channels, could literally just choke.
A single customer means a single point of catastrophic failure.
Over.
Note that we aren't taking any political side here, just analyzing the very real financial risk of relying on one entity for your revenue.
Absolutely. It's a pure balance sheet vulnerability.
Which means AEVX is constantly racing the clock. They are dealing with supply chain sanctions, massive payrolls, and the unpredictable gears of federal funding, all while trying to scale production.
It's a lot to balance.
To survive that lag, they needed a massive injection of cash. So here's where it gets really interesting. Let's look at the mechanical capital loop of their April 2026 initial public offering.
Right, the IPO was a fundamental recapitalization of their balance sheet. They went public on the NYSE.
Raising, what, $320 million in gross proceeds?
$320 million at $20 per share.
Right. But they didn't just take that cash and throw it into a checking account to fund operations. We need to trace the exact allocation of those funds.
This is where the debt extinguishment forensics come in. AEVX took those IPO proceeds, paired them with a new term loan, and executed a massive $258.5 million lump sum repayment.
Wow.
Yeah. They completely extinguished their outstanding variable rate senior credit debt.
Why were they so desperate to clear that specific debt, though?
Because variable rate legacy debt in an economy with volatile or spiking interest rates acts like a suffocating anchor on cash flow.
Every time the rates tick up.
Exactly. Every time rates ticked up, their interest expense ballooned, eating their margins alive before they could even finish building a drone.
Oh, man.
So swapping that toxic high-interest variable debt for fresh equity and a better structured term loan vastly reduced their interest expenses.
Which brings us to a massive contradiction in their non-DAP reconciliation.
Oh, the cash flow disconnect.
Yeah. Because if you look at their Q1 2026 reporting, they posted a GAAP net income of $21.0 million
Right.
and an incredibly strong adjusted EBITDA of $36.4 million.
Which represents a 16.8% consolidated margin.
Right. So the core manufacturing engine is highly profitable. But if you scroll down to the cash flow statement, they are bleeding cash from operations. How does a company make $36 million in adjusted profit but burn cash?
We have to quantify the working capital absorption. The forensic reconciliation shows a $40.1 million working capital cash drain.
$40 million out the door.
Yes, it is the hidden cost of accelerated volumetric scaling.
Break that down for us. Why is the cash draining so fast if the drones are profitable?
Because AEVX is scaling up to fulfill the massive EUCOM Deep Strike program.
Right.
To output over 1,000 systems a month, they have to pay their suppliers up front for raw materials, rare earth minerals, and electronics.
Especially with those unreliable entity sanctions from China.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They are shelling out tens of millions of dollars in accelerated cash payments just to secure the physical components. They build the drones, ship them, and then wait months for the government to actually accept delivery, process the invoices, and finally pay them.
It's like throwing a massive, incredibly expensive banquet. You have to buy all the premium ingredients out of pocket, the truffles, the Wagyu beef, the lighting months before the guests actually show up and hand you their tickets.
That's a great analogy.
Your event might be wildly profitable on paper once everyone pays, but in the meantime, your bank account is absolutely draining.
And if even one of those banquet guests cancels, say, the U.S. budget gets frozen in a continuing resolution, AEVX is left holding the bag for all those groceries.
Right.
That working capital drain is why the IPO and the debt restructuring were absolute necessities.
They needed the cushion.
Without that liquidity buffer, their supply chain would have choked on the upfront costs, and they would have missed their delivery milestones for the EUCOM program.
Wow. So we've looked at the massive TAM, the edge manufacturing with ForgeX, the CompassX software armor, and the intense underlying financial realities of their working capital burn.
We've covered a lot of ground.
It's time to determine the final verdict. Based on this strategic valuation re-rating, is AEVEX Aerospace, a generational autonomous defense juggernaut, justified by its unprecedented output scale and technical multiple premium?
Or does it expose investors to the cyclical risks of theater funding, dangerous single customer concentration, and massive upfront capital sinks?
What's the takeaway here?
Look, they have built an undeniable physical and software moat that legacy primes are really struggling to replicate right now. But this raises an important question, one that you need to carefully consider regarding contract execution lag times.
What's the question?
AEVX's entire competitive advantage, their jamming-immune software armor and their telemetry pipeline, relies heavily on the active, intense electronic warfare crucible of current global conflicts.
They need the live data to keep the AI sharp.
They desperately need the data. If global hostilities were to suddenly freeze, or if the primary conflict theaters were to significantly de-escalate tomorrow, would their telemetry pipeline dry up?
Oh, wow.
And if they stop harvesting thousands of hours of live combat stress data, does that suddenly give the massive legacy primes, with their endless R&D budgets, the window of time they need to catch up in the laboratory?
That is the ultimate tension. They've built a bridge to the future of defense manufacturing, but maintaining that bridge requires a very specific, very active kind of chaos to keep its edge. Something for you to mull over as you evaluate the changing landscape of global defense. Risk defined, portfolio protected.